a lot of times when I speak, I don't want people to think like I'm on the Fed side, like I'm some shill for the Fed. Like that's not what I'm about here.
No.
I'm just a dude trying to figure the stuff out, trying to position myself in the best way I can. And from what I've learned about the Federal Reserve and what I hear coming out on the mainstream media are completely different. Like they are
Yeah.
not the same thing. And so when I speak on behalf of the Fed's strategy. Like this is what the Fed is doing. Like I don't think it's a good thing. I don't think it's a bad thing. I just think it is and is, and
Mhm.
how I have to deal with it.
Yeah, one thing I'm seeing a lot of talk about is the M2 money supply. The fact that the M2 money supply is is negative, right? It's been going down for, quarters now.
Uh,
Also, the fact that people want to spin it as it hasn't done this since the Great Depression. They want to make those connections.
right.
What do you think about the M2 money supply falling? Is it leading us to a Great Depression, or is it, hey guys, zoom out? It was crazy for the last year or so.
Um, yeah, you have to really zoom out on this one. And
Yeah, yeah.
there's it's become so overwhelming. It's hard to even wrap your mind around it. It was just like, man, how much money even really exists out there in the
Yeah,
world? And like,
exactly.
how is is this locked up in the banking system? Is it out there for people to use? How much is paper currency as opposed to bank reserves? And they're like, it starts making your mind spin.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree.
what really it comes down to is demand for the currency. That's the at the end of the day, that's really what it is. How many people really want the dollar or don't want the dollar, right?
Hmm.
And
Yep.
so when you hear like news out there of things like the BRICS nations abandoning the dollar or getting okay, very true. Like there is very little doubt in my mind about that, right?
Hmm.
However, we also have to take into consideration how many debts are actually written in dollars that don't have anything to do with the United States. Like nothing.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have anything to do with our government, our banks, our corporations, our people, nothing. Like it doesn't have a single thing to do with the United States at all in any way, shape, or form, except that these nations, these corporations, and these people outside of the United States have written debts due in dollars,
Yep.
right? This
You're
is a
right.
very big thing because, I had like when I first started studying the economy, especially the American economy, I would keep it isolated to our borders, but not thinking about the world reserve currency and how much demand for that world reserve currency is. We hear the BRICS nations say they're abandoning dollars, but yet you can go and find where many nations around the world are still writing debts due in dollars today, right?
Hmm.
And in fact, if you go and you look at what would take place if people really wanted to get out of the dollar, is what they would have to do is they would have to try and acquire as many dollars as that they could in order to pay off those debts, those
Correct.
dollar denominated debts that are out there. So in order to even close those debts out, there's going to be a demand for dollars,
Hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
those debts far outweigh how many dollars exist out there. So there's no
Agreed.
way that all the dollars can pay off all those debts that have been written, right? So
Yeah.
somebody's not getting paid, right? That's
Yeah.
something, one
Exactly.
thing to think about on. Here's another thing to think about. Those debts are being used as if they're dollars too,
Hmm.
right? Not only do you
Oh
have the
yeah.
dollars out there, but then you have these debts that were written that are also getting used as dollars. So how much dollar transactions are actually taking place out there? A
Yeah.
lot, a
A
whole
lot.
lot,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. The
And
death
the
the
moment,
death of the dollar has been greatly exaggerated for
right?
years.
So
Yeah.
now, if you were to pay off all these debts, if we were to just say, hey, get out of the dollar, whatever, I really honestly don't think that the Federal Reserve could print at a pace that is fast enough to do it,
Yeah.
which is something scary to think about all on its own, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, how does this hyperinflation scenario end up working with this? Like this M2 money supply, as it starts to shrink, people are getting worried about that. Well, I wouldn't stress it out too much because really what would end up happening as far as like a hyperinflation or a deflation of the money supply actually impacting the economy would be the flow of money coming back to the United States, right?
Hmm.
That would be the biggest concern about it. And until you have a situation in which that the dollar has been completely abandoned and now they have to do something with these dollars and that's to spend it back in the United States, that scenario situation, I don't see it. I don't see
Yeah.
anywhere in sight that that's coming or even remotely close to being there yet.
Yeah. When
So
I
the
hear
M2
about it,
money supply, yeah, the M2 money supply to me is really more about a pulling back of the reserves out of the banking system as much
yeah.
as it is trying to like slow down the amount of dollars that are out there in the economy. You know what I
Uh,
mean? It's just like
yeah.
it's to me more this is like a banking system withdrawal of reserves going back to the Federal Reserve.